and welcome back to the Pregnancy and Postnatal Entrepreneurs Collective podcast. I'm your host, Neve Cassidy. I'm very excited to be joined by Carson Wagner. She is the founder of Lifetime of Love Nannies, a US agency providing inclusive, customizable childcare from newborns to backup corporate childcare support. And what began as a vision to provide ethical, high quality in-home care to local families has grown into a thriving company with over 75 employees in 3 locations. So very welcome to the podcast, Carson. It's great to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for taking the time. So, a lot of the times when I interview people, they are in the direct kind of birth work industry. Being involved in childcare and in nannying is such an adjacent industry. And the way that you've built your business is just so inspiring. I thought it'd be really interesting to have you on. So can you tell us a bit about, I know you were in college and you were studying and then you decided to pack it all in and start your own business. So what gave you the bravery or the audacity to do something like that?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Yeah, when I was going to college, I think kind of as everyone does when you're in college, you are like, what in the world do I want to do for the rest of my life? And it's really intimidating, especially at the age you're 18, just adulting, and now you're supposed to figure out what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. And I just was not 100% sure what I wanted to do, but I was always in the childcare field, caring for children and just being within that community and that industry. And I noticed just a huge need for 24/7 care that was customizable for families, especially during modern day when there's a lot of dual working parent households. And there's a lot of nurses and doctors and policemen that work, very different shifts that are outside of that typical 9 to 5. And they just didn't have access to the childcare that they needed. And so I dropped out of college. My whole entire family thought had lost my mind. And I started my agency, which was actually right around the same time as COVID. So it was definitely right time, right place for us, because then all the childcare facilities shut down and then people really needed nannies and babysitters. And so we just really grew a lot because of COVID and taught us a lot of hard obstacles to endure. And we just continue to grow and open new locations. And it's been a really fun ride.
So that was a really interesting way of going about it, in niching into that particular market where you saw an opportunity or a need for people who need childcare outside of that 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 type scenario where that a lot of childcare is providing. I think it's a really interesting way of first, how did you come up with that? Were people looking for this, or was it just something that you identified yourself?
Yeah, I mean, in my city, we have a lot of casinos, for example, and we are a 24/7 city. And I had looked up online when I was nannying, when families were looking for like overnight care and, they wanted to go on vacation or they had a conference to attend and needed to leave their kids at home. And there just weren't really any resources. And I was looking up 24/7 daycares, 24/7 options, and there was nothing in the search bar. I mean, everything that was coming up was daycares that were operating from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm like, well, that's not very helpful for these families' needs. And I just realized it was a huge need in our community. And then paired with also, children with different capabilities and being able to really customize not just the times of the care, but the type of caregiver that they're receiving. And so, I mean, we really pride ourselves in our mission is to be accepting to all kids of all capabilities. So we have nannies that just do newborn care. We have nannies that do special needs care. We have nannies that do senior companionship. I mean, we really want to be that one-stop shop for in-home care and, diversify as much as we can based on the community's needs. And it seems that every community we've gone to, the last 3 ones, have all had that same need of newborn to senior care with the options for specialized care for kiddos with different needs that need extra support.
And it's so like broad and niche at the same time in the way that you create your model of care of supporting different types of families who have different types of needs. And when you were starting out and you decided I'm going to run an agency, you know, that's a big kind of decision to make right at the start. So what brought you to that, and then how quickly did you hire your first employees?
I just had realized the need initially when I was in college and having families asking me to stay later and all of these things occurring. I'm like, man, there needs to be resources. And I was working with kiddos with autism at home at the time, and it's specifically for them, you know, people that just have the experience that's needed, I guess you could say. And I had gone down, I got my business license, and I mean, dropped out literally as soon as possible and was like, I'm just going to pursue this. I will mention I had zero experience whatsoever other than, you know, the little jobs I had taken as a 18, 19-year-old. I started my business at 19. So I had never had a corporate background or anything. I didn't know what company culture was or anything like that. I had no idea what payroll was. I had no idea how to make a contract or what a contract should be. I did not know how to write a professional email. There were a lot of hurdles in the beginning, to say the
Yep.
least. And I knew there was never going to be a right time, so to speak. So I was like, there's obviously a need here. I might as well just jump in feet first. And I hired my I created my business plan on a few pieces of paper. I think I actually still have them. I've tried to keep them because it's pretty hilarious. And I hired my first employee, I think probably within the first week or 2 weeks.
Wow.
And in the beginning, it was really me, you know, families coming to us. I was going door to door, knocking on people's doors, handing out my brochures saying, hey, do you have a kid? Because if you do, we can care for them, which sounds a little creepy now thinking back to it. But I just wanted to hustle and grind and find those
Mhm.
families and really put myself out there. And, you know, it slowly but surely, you know, progressed and worked and just built that clientele and that client book. And in the very beginning, it was just me and a few other employees that we would get the schedules from the families. We had a software at the time that would allow families to log in, add in their bookings. And then I would match them with available caregivers. And if a caregiver wasn't available or called in, I was the one that was jumping out of bed and going. So in the beginning, it was definitely a lot to try to grow a business, manage clients, manage employees, do all of this on my own, learn payroll, learn contracts. It was intense. I'd say the first 2 years were
I can
very
imagine.
intense, but I mean, I really truly believe the best way to learn, especially, you know, entrepreneurship is just saying yes and figuring it out later. And I don't think there's ever such thing as the right time or having the right knowledge or whatever the case may be. This is my opinion. I think the I feel like I learned so much more with hands-on experience with my business than I could have in college, because it was just so hands-on and so much trial and error. And you know, it was just a lot to learn at the time. But I'm grateful I have. I still don't feel like I have it all together.
Yeah.
Still is state 5.5 years in, but I definitely feel like I have it a lot more together and a better understanding than I did a year in.
It sounds like you had like a real entrepreneurial spirit, you know, that kind of get up and go, just get into it, figure it out as you go along. And for someone, and you've said yourself so young at the time to kind of just go in with that, like had you outside influences of people who'd been entrepreneurs, or was it just something that's inside you?
You know, I always knew that I wanted to do something that I felt passionate about.
Mhm.
Growing up, even in college, I just really wanted to find something that I loved. And I always loved children, always loved helping others. And that was just an industry that really spoke to me. And so I was blessed enough to have that, you know, in the back of my head of knowing that I really enjoy this. And so it was really just what path do I want to take within this field? And I think I've always had a sense of an entrepreneurial spirit. My dad actually started a heavy machinery attachment business. It was called Wagner. which is like a spinoff of her last name, Wagner. And I remember growing up, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But that definitely inspired me. Now that
Mhm.
you mentioned that, I never really thought about that. And I just, I really love to learn hands on. I'm not really the best at reading and retaining information,
Mhm.
quite honestly. I'm a lot better of just getting out, doing it, and then figuring it out for myself. And that's really what entrepreneurship is about. And I actually had about a year and a half into my business. Her name's Megan Metzger. She is a mentor for agency owners. And she called me and she was like, "Where did you come from? Do you need help?" I was like, "Please help me." So she lives across the country from me. She flew all the way down. She stayed with me at my house for a week and helped me with my contracts and my fees and policies and employing my whole entire staff. And she just came down and helped me with everything. And I owe a lot to her for doing that because she really made us legit. She really helped us get off the ground. And that's a huge recommendation, is finding someone that knows the industry better than you
Mhm.
do to help you with that. Because if I would have found her in the beginning of my agency, uh, of the inception, I would have had a lot less stressors of trials and errors than I did when I met her. So that
Yeah.
was a really big part of my journey too, and I'm
It sounds
forever
like
grateful
it.
for her.
That sounds like it was a really amazing support for you. And I'm really interested in your decision to hire your staff as employees rather than as contractors. So a lot of the other agencies that are in the birth work industry, for example, would hire in people as contractors. So what was it that made you the decision to go take the risk, I suppose, of hiring employees instead?
Yeah, it was definitely the best decision I ever had done. It was a lot to, employing and getting all of the paperwork and just
Mhm.
everything as a whole. It's a lot in the beginning, but it's not as intimidating as it seems. I have a lot of people that will reach out to me and be like, "How do I employ?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"This is a lot of information I'm about to give you, but it's really not that stressful." It's the best decision that I made for my company. And one of the biggest things for me is with a 1099, an independent contractor, you are not legally allowed to, or at least in the US, to
Okay.
train them and give them training as to how to
Okay.
do the job. You can tell them, "Hey, this is the end goal and this is your job duties," but you cannot train them on exactly how you want them to finish and complete that job. And for me, we're caring for newborns, we're caring
Mhm.
for, the people's most precious thing in the whole entire world. And I just did not sleep well at night knowing that I was, able to send people out that were not fully trained the way that I wanted them to be,
Yeah.
because people can have all of the experience on paper, but there may be, like we do SID, CPR paired with like what happens if a kiddo throws a tantrum? What do we do? We're not doing timeout. We're doing these things instead. And that was just really important to me. And I wanted to be able to share that with my staff. So the training was number one. And then also, a household employee is exactly that, an employee. And in this industry, it drives me a little crazy because sometimes it seems like people do not take take nannying or in-home
Mhm.
care as seriously as they do someone working in the corporate world, when it is just as important, if not
Mhm.
more.
Yeah.
And there are, these industry norms that have occurred where people are paid under the table and just not compensated
Mhm.
fairly. And, that would not fly at a bank. So why in the world is that flying as a nanny? And so that was another thing for us, is I just wanted to ensure, instead of giving the families the opportunity to pay our, staff under the table or
Mhm.
to 1099 them themselves, I just said, let's go ahead, let's employ them. And then that way, if they want to get a car and they need a loan, they have proof of income. If they want to buy a house, they have proof of income. If they are to get really sick and they need unemployment, they can go down to the unemployment office and receive unemployment. There were just so many benefits and
Mhm.
pros to employing than there were to 1099. I just saw tons of cons with 1099 and a crazy amount of pros with employment style. And one of the things that really makes us stand out is instead of having the families employ the nannies directly, like I said, we
Mhm.
employ them directly. And so we would rather, as we know how to employ, we know labor laws, we know regulations, we know all these different things. We want to be in charge of the raises, the bonuses, the time off, giving them additional vacation pay. Healthcare is a big thing for us. We just started offering full benefits, medical, dental, vision. So we want our whole entire team to have access to this instead of, one family's offering healthcare, the other family's not,
Yeah.
and then one nanny is without it. So instead, it's just fully, everyone has the same benefits, which really, makes us happy, and I think really makes our employees happy. And we have a really awesome retention rate because of it.
It sounds like you really would, because you can hear the passion in your voice about caring for your employees as well as your families, and how important it is that they feel looked after in the roles that they're doing. And you made such an important point as well around how undervalued all type of care work can be. In particular, I often feel that it's because women are primarily responsible for most type of care work. It can be super undervalued. I know a lot of our postpartum doulas would feel similar, that they feel that they can't charge certain rates because the work essentially is undervalued. And it is important that whether we're working for ourselves or whether we're employing other people, that we're adequately compensated for the work that we do, and that we feel looked after within the work that we do as well, because you're giving so much of yourself to the families that you care for, whether you're a nanny or a doula or a lactation consultant or whatever part of the care work people are in. It is really important that people also feel looked after too, because otherwise it can lead to burnout. It can lead to like inappropriate levels of care if people just aren't feeling themselves. So it's definitely a really important aspect of the work that you're doing, I think.
Absolutely. And I completely relate to that. And also to your point of mainly women, I will tell you, my employees are only women. And it's not because we choose
Mm-hmm.
that. It's just that is who applies. We have 75 amazing, beautiful women that are just the most passionate, fantastic humans at what they do, and they need to be valued for their time. And so one of the roles that we take on as an agency is advocating for them. And I've noticed it's a lot easier to advocate for them when I'm able to make the rules of, hey, everyone has these packages and has access to this, that, the other,
Mm-hmm.
versus, giving the families options. And then it also, the family's not meant to be an employer. They have never been an employer in their life. They're just looking for childcare. They're not looking to be an employer and have an employee. And I mean, it's a huge pro to the families and, to the household workers. It really is. And to your point of saying, you know, sometimes feeling, I remember at least when I first started the agency, and I still sometimes struggle with this, is that feeling of how do we charge what we're worth? And then how do we also know what we're supposed to charge based on the
Mm-hmm.
experience, et cetera, that we have? And I think that a lot of us in the industry really struggle with this because we're in it for the passion. That's the
Mm-hmm.
reason we got into this. Like, yes, the financial, everyone works because we need to make a living,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also that this is such a passion project and something that really resonates in people's hearts. And I think that's what can make it really tough in this industry is, hey, I love what I do and it doesn't really feel like work. Like I genuinely love it and I know I'm awesome at it and have tons of experience, but I also need to make sure I'm charging what I'm worth and what, is important to me. This is the lifestyle and the things that I want that I deem as a need and a want for me. And this is what I need in order to get there. It can be really challenging. And I know a lot of, doulas, nannies that have, worked privately with
Mm-hmm.
families. That can be a struggle. We'll have nannies tell us sometimes, hey, the family couldn't afford this rate. So I ended up, cutting my rate in half. And it's definitely a struggle when it comes to pricing. And I mean, I remember when I first started the agency, our rates were so crazy low. I mean, it was pretty incredibly low. And I mean, we were barely profiting anything. And I have over the years, oh my gosh, how much have we have probably raised it. We've raised our rates by at least double what they
Mhm.
initially were in the last 5.5 years. And of course, with that, we're offering healthcare, they're employed, this, that,
Yeah.
all of these other benefits that come that have a fun price tag on them.
Mhm.
But they, we've raised it because we just know what we're worth. We know what we bring to the table. We
Mhm.
know what value, we have a huge value add of what we do. And we want to make sure that not only the agency, but my awesome internal team is compensated properly
Mhm.
for it. And the nannies are compensated properly for their time, and we're able to keep the lights on and some. So, yeah, I think pricing is definitely important because if not, that burnout rate can be
Mhm.
so high because you just need more and more and more families versus having a select few families that you're able to really take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking as well about when you were saying in your early days you were knocking on the doors and you were saying, let me look after your kids. Um, how did you bring that to the next level to help you kind of build this really successful business that you have? So what kind of marketing, promotion work have you done over the years to bring you to where you are today?
One of the biggest things for us is I had initially created our website and I thought it was fantastic.
We've all
But
done that.
oh yeah, we've all done it. And we I actually hired a web developer to come in and create our website. And for any of you that want to look at it, I'm really proud of it. It's lifetimeoflovenannies.com. It's a great website. And we have gotten so many more leads from that website because it's so
Mhm.
much more informative. And we've just done a lot of SEO on that website as well. So just adding in a ton of keywords. We do Google ads. I
Mhm.
spend about, how much do I spend? Maybe $1,000 a month. That's
Mhm.
between though all three locations, about $1,000 a month for Google Ads. So it's really not that much compared to other businesses. I could spend. I probably should spend more. I don't know. I've tested it out. I've seen, what does $5,000 a month do? What does $500 a month do? And there really wasn't that much of a difference because then we get random calls that have nothing to do with us. So we
Mhm.
thought just 1,000 is really good, you know, in between that works
Yeah.
well for us. We use Google, like the Google business page, and we actually utilize that as social media. So we'll go on and we'll post different updates which show Google we're active. So then we're ranked higher. I'm trying to think. We do Facebook, we do Instagram. We are very active on both of those. We just started doing TikTok and making some really stupid, silly videos that we just think are hilarious, that are actually getting some hits. So we're happy about that. We will do in person things such as going to, different events where we know parents are going to be. We have one coming up
Mhm.
that's women owned businesses. So we're going there and we're going to have a booth there. We really just try to be as engaged in the community as
Mhm.
possible. Another one that it's actually very new for us. We just started it this month, but we're reaching out to businesses in the three locations we have and asking them if they can do a blog post for us on our website. And so then if somebody is to look up online, when should I know to take my child to the doctor if they have a
Mhm.
cold? We now have a blog directly about that will then populate in that area that they can read, and then they see
Mhm.
Lifetime Love Nannies and maybe they need some childcare. So we definitely try to be very innovative and constantly thinking of new ideas of how to market. Another big one when I first started the agency was joining the parents Facebook groups. If none of you listeners are on the parent Facebook groups, I beg of you to join those because those have found me so many clients and they post exactly what they're looking for. We're in many that are, moms needing babysitters, working moms from home, tons of
Mhm.
just different Facebook groups that are location based. So I always recommend the Facebook groups. They're the best.
That's really interesting, the kind of variety of different things that you're using. And the importance of those blogs, I think, is really really important, having that SEO type work, because the blogs do so well for SEO
Yeah.
and bringing people to the web pages, so that can be really effective. So you're now
Yeah.
in 3 locations. So how did you go from scaling from 1 location to 2 to 3?
Yeah. So I knew we have a location in Reno, Tahoe, Nevada. And I just knew that I really wanted more locations. We
Mhm.
have a phenomenal model. We really do. And I knew I wanted to scale it. And so we opened our second one in Las Vegas. It really didn't take much. It was just simply learning the market out there, learning, utilizing. It wasn't, I should say, it was difficult, but it was not as hard as starting my first location.
Yeah.
Like we already have the wheel. We already know what's working. We already know what's not. So we're just going to double it and put it in other places. And that's exactly what we've done. We're actually opening 2 more locations this year in California. And then we're planning to just really go state by state. And then another way that we're looking to scale is doing licensing agreements with other agency owners that are looking to take on our model and are looking to,
Mhm.
have a lifetime of love nannies of their own. That's another
Okay.
thing that we're looking to do where we'll fly out, help them, get them prepped and ready, and set for success. And one of the things that I actually didn't mention that has really helped us with the
Mhm.
locations and just starting off in general is we do a reoccurring membership model. And so we do have a profit from the hourly rates that we charge. So per hour worked, we have a profit from that to have our internal team, all the different things we have going
Yeah.
on. And then we also have a membership that we charge. It's $50 a month for 4 bookings. It basically waives a $30 booking fee, is what that membership does, and gives them access to a lower hourly rate. And then it's $110 a month for unlimited membership. And that alone, I mean, especially during COVID or even during Christmas time, December for us is pretty slow because there's so many families traveling out of town and
Mhm.
so many nannies traveling out of town and
Yeah.
seeing their families, that having those memberships creates such a stable source of income that it's been fantastic for us to go ahead and open these other locations, because those memberships alone are able to help us with the marketing, the this, that, the other, where we're not taking from our solid location we have here and
Mhm.
putting more money into the pots elsewhere, but utilizing the money that we're getting from each location to then just put into that location and grow it steadily. So yeah, those memberships have been really, really great for, not just client loyalty and knowing that they're coming back to us and they're going to be utilizing us for quite some
Mhm.
time, but also, for starting up an agency in another location.
That's brilliant. And it's a really interesting way of doing things, and really helpful for, as you said, for both the business and the families, because then the families have, some level of comfort that they have access, that if they need somebody, they can get someone because they're part of the
Exactly.
membership. And obviously then as well, because you have this 24-hour model of care that people can avail of as well. So, if you were to think about, any other pieces of advice that we haven't talked through already for maybe someone who might be working on their own now but are considering kind of going bigger and maybe hiring people, or, taking on, just making their business from just themselves to more people, is there any other tips or information that you feel would be beneficial for them?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would suggest, since I didn't do this in the beginning and it definitely hurt me, and I wish I would have, but now I know, is just really sitting down and saying, what do I want my company culture to look like? What is super important to me? And then make those hiring decisions directly off of that company culture. And then if someone's actions are not meeting the standards of your company culture, such as respect or meaningful work or
Mhm.
working with compassion, whatever your core values are and what that company culture looks like. If things aren't aligning, you can make those hiring and firing decisions based off that company culture. And that was one of my biggest things is had a hard time in the beginning knowing personal and professional
Yeah.
and what the difference was. And when you're a smaller business at the time too, I
Mhm.
was a small business owner, just me doing all the hiring decisions and firing decisions, it was hard because I created such a personal bond with these, nannies. They were such awesome, cool people, and I wanted to be friends with them, quite frankly. I'm like, man,
Mhm.
this is a bummer. All my employees I want to hang out with, and unfortunately can't do that. But I just knew, if someone was really struggling or something was happening and many call outs were occurring, I would really try to help them personally instead of also looking at, hey, this is really affecting the families and this is really affecting me and everyone in the agency as a whole and our reputation. And just having that company culture and knowing, looking down your list and saying, okay, yes, personally, I think this person is so awesome, but company culture wise and what we stand for, they may be an awesome person, but they may not be an awesome employee for this organization. And so I think that was a big learning curve for me in the beginning, is just learning that I have to stick to, not just personal decisions, but make those professional decisions that benefit everyone, including them. Maybe they can find something that's a lot more sustainable for them that meets their current lifestyle and their needs. So that would be a big piece of advice. And then also community, really prioritize surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs and people that truly inspire me and people that I really want to take advice from and that I value the advice that's given. And community's been huge because when I'm having a hard day or I have a decision I need to make, sometimes as a, founder or business owner, it can feel very lonely because you have the final decision that you need to make. And sometimes you feel like you don't have that support. And having, a list of people I can call that are either agency owners or just business owners in general, coaches that can talk me through things and experience share, that they've
Mhm.
been through the same thing and I'm not alone. And this is how they handled it. And that's how, maybe I should look into handling it that way too. That community is huge. And I would say community and culture are the top two.
I think that's like just a really nice points that you've made there. I think the culture part, many of us have had experiences of being employees and rolling into a company culture or not. But also we have the privilege of being able to set our own culture when it's our business, and the privilege and the responsibility to make sure that it is one that values the people that are working for us and values the people who we are serving as well. So I think that was a really nice way of kind of summing it up, and the learning that you had from that along the way. And also the idea of community, because as birth workers, we're always trying to encourage the parents that we support to find their village, to find other people outside of the professionals that they're hiring that can be their support people, who can help them with this phase of their life. And when we're running a business, we need people who are in this phase of life to support us too, because we don't all grow up with people like that around us. We don't all have friends like that around us. Like if most people work for somebody else, it's really important to kind of find other people who are doing similar to you, to, like you said, be able to bounce those ideas off or just get that little bit of moral support when you're having a wobble. So I do think that's really, really good tips that you've given there for people. So Carson, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to talk about? Or, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where is the best place for them to find you?
If you want to find out more about Lifetime of Love Nannies or connect with me directly, I have LinkedIn, which I'll share with you.
Yep.
And then lifetimeoflovenannies.com is our website. There's a contact form as well if you ever want to reach out to us. I am a very open book. If anybody has any questions or wants to shoot me a text or give me a ring, I'm happy to jump on a call. I know, like you had mentioned, it definitely takes a village, and I'm happy to support anyone in finding their village or being a part of that. And yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And, this industry is just so phenomenal. And we have the most phenomenal people, working in this industry. And we're doing such important work by supporting, families, especially, when they first give birth to their first child, and just being a part of the journey for them, through and through. And so I think it's also just so important to find that support for yourself as well.
Absolutely, I agree. So thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you to all of the listeners. And all of Carson's details will be in the show notes, so you can check her out on her website or on LinkedIn as well. So until next week, we will talk to you then.